This is pretty much a maiden edition, so let me tell you what this show is all about. The two things you're going to see constant on this show: African food, vegan food. African, vegan. That's what this show is all about. Vegan and African combined, right? Let me tell you something about myself. My name is Jahbeloved. I'm many things rolled up in one. As the show goes along, you get to learn more about me. But many of you may know me in one capacity or the other. However much you know me, welcome to this show. Now, many years ago when I started my ITAL tribe, my Rastafari Liberty, one thing that I was really thinking about was how I was going to cope with being vegan or ITAL and eating my African foods, because I love my African foods. So going vegan, how was I going to cope with missing out on fufu and TZ? But there was nothing to worry about at all. The answers were right there. First of all, there are foods that are naturally vegan, African foods that are naturally vegan. We're going to be showing you how to make some of those. And then there are foods that can be adapted from their meat versions into a vegan version using modified protein or replacements like mushrooms and stuff like that. So we're going to learn a lot about that too. In the meantime, see me in my fly little hat? Let me tell you something about this. This is a project that I'm an ambassador of, and I'm a very proud ambassador of. It's called the Pan-African World Heritage Project. It's headed by Professor Kojo Yanka, a man of incredible repute, indelible repute, and he is putting up this project where we're going to be building a village which will house all the cultures of Africa. It's an incredible project that can only stem out of a brain like that of Professor Kojo Yanka. A video of it will be playing and you'll get to see more about that. In the meantime, let's return to business. As I was saying, this show is about vegan and African. Along the line, we could host, people or foods that are not necessarily African but are still vegan. It just has to be vegan, period. But sometimes we may host people who will show us how to make other things that we may love to eat. I like Oriental food, Chinese food, Japanese food especially, and all of that. We may make some of them here too, using our own techniques. And then sometimes we may host people who may come and show us vegan foods across Africa, other African countries, Ethiopia, South Africa, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, everywhere. So that is what you're in for. Welcome to ITAL, MUKASE. Alright, so this morning we're making breakfast. Making something for breakfast, right? And we're going to make wheat porridge. For our ingredients, we'll need some amount of wheat. For fortification, I like to fortify my food all the time, whenever I can. I have some flaxseed to go with it. And then we have some coconut milk powder. We also have almond milk, which we'll be using later on. And I have some bee pollen. It's a luxury I have. You don't have to add that. It's a sweetener. But you could also use other sweetener like pure brown sugar, cane sugar, right? Which is actually what we'll be using today. This is something that I just use just because, And then we also spice it a little bit with some nutmeg and some cinnamon. Basically, these are your ingredients for today's meal. Breakfast is about to not be served, be cooked. Come with me, let's go to the stove. Alright. So, we're starting by having a bit of water boiling on the stove. While the water is boiling, we're going to be getting this stuff ready. What some people go straight. I actually like the straight because I like the grit and all of that. But just for those who don't want to, really, let's break it down a little bit, just a little bit. You don't want it to be too smooth, because it's not it's not supposed to be too smooth, really. So here we go. Put some of our wheat in a blender. Remember, don't break it down too much. And we also put in some flaxseed, like I showed you before. Now, flaxseed is one of the hardest thing to break down. But don't feel no way about ingesting flaxseed as is. It's gonna do what it's gonna do and get out. It's not gonna harm you at all. But this is a good opportunity though to help break it down a little bit, because the more you break it down, the more you get from it, right? So I put a generous amount of flaxseed in there with my wheat. Same color though, almost the same. Yeah, you actually almost looks the same. So it's gonna blend in very beautifully, as you're about to find out. Alright, so give that a little shake just to get it together, mixed together properly, and give it one small little twirl around. You don't want it to, once more, too smooth, like I've been saying forever, because really you don't want it to be too smooth. See? And there you go. Perfect. That is the texture you want. See? There's still a lot of gravy on it. At this point, your water is boiling, and you want to bring your thing over and have it cooking. So let's move over to the stove. I'm actually standing at the stove right now, as you can tell from that camera over there. So what we're going to do is get the actual cooking going on, alright? Yes indeed. The trick with this thing is to stir it while you're still pouring it in, because you don't want it to lump up, and the more it stays in there, the more it's likely to lump up. So you stir it while it's still. Stir as you pour it in. That's the trick, so it doesn't lump up. Yep. Yes, indeed. Nice and easy. So the water ratio to the wheat ratio, or the grain ratio, is also important, right? Because you want it to be the right texture. Yes, indeed. So it's going on, as you can see. Short camera 1 is picking it nicely, showing it bubbling. And the thing with wheat is it's a grain, so you really must cook it. So don't feel no way about it cooking down. It needs to cook down. Alright? It's not pre-processed. This is raw wheat. So make sure you give it the time to really process properly. Let it cook. Let it cook. That's why I mentioned earlier that the ratio of water to the ratio of grain is very important, because you don't want it to be thick and not cooked yet, and at the same time you don't want it to be like light, because you want to scoop it and eat it. So you give it enough water to cook it down to the point where by the time it starts getting to the right texture, there's still enough water to hold it down, right? There you go. Keep stirring. If at any point you feel like it's getting too thick and it's still not cooked yet, don't feel any way about adding a little bit of water, alright? That's always the trick. And I've heard some more experienced people say that it's better to add hot water rather than cold water, because then it kind of like picks up right from its own temperature and keeps boiling, rather than reverse it and bring it back. But I've also heard a school of thought that sometimes when you add the cold water, it kind of like helps break it down, because it changes its temperature all of a sudden and then reverts to the temperature back again. I'll leave that to the scientists to figure out. I'm just making some food. Looks like we're looking good. At this point, it looks like it's almost cooked. This is a good time to add in your spices. A little bit of nutmeg, a little bit of cinnamon. Not too much, because you don't need to overwhelm the whole thing, you know, like maybe a dash or two. And then we go to the nutmeg. Now it's really cooking. You can feel free to turn it down a bit. Turn down enough. And I cannot find my grater as well, so I'm going to use a knife to get my nutmeg in there. I normally use a grater, but I can't find it, so I'll just use a knife, scrape a little bit of nutmeg. Not too much of that either, you know, but just enough to announce its presence in there. Now, turn off the stove, and it's almost there. Mix it down, mix it down, mix it down. Mix it down. It's cooked and ready, but we have to sweeten it. All right, here we go. I'm gonna bring it over and serve it. Something my mom used to make when we were growing up, you know. Anybody who was in Ghana in 1983, thereabouts, knows what happened in 1983. There was very little food. Fortunately for me, let's simply say we didn't have to suffer too much of that, but how we got around, part of how we got around some of that was because my mom was ingenious with using the same ingredients over and over and over again in different ways, so that you didn't even realize that you was eating the same thing at the same time. You know, that's part of the ingenuity of the Ghanaian woman. Celebrate that. Anyhow, so let's have some of this. Oh, it smells so good. Smell the cinnamon and the nutmeg at the same time. I think I balanced it well. I think I did a good job with it. Smell it. It smells really good. Some oat milk. Oat milk, almond milk. Some people like soy milk. I moved from soy milk a very long time ago. These days I do things like cashew milk, oat milk. I never liked rice milk. I don't even get the idea. Oat milk, really. Oat milk, cashew milk, and almond milk. These three are, you know, what I normally use. I also have the powdered milk, you know, the what do you call it, the powdered coconut milk. You could use that too. If you get it, it's great. You could, matter of fact, what I'm going to do is sweeten all of it before I serve it. Okay, let's do that. Here you go. 1 second, let's get this thing out. And then a little spoon, let's add in some of this coconut thing here. Coconut milk powder. Ooh. So one thing with that, the reason why I also like using that is it also adds to the smell and the flavor. You know, one thing with food, if it looks good and it smells good, it probably tastes good. And that's the story here. This thing smells incredibly well. Nice. It does. Okay, and remember I was telling you about the bee pollen? It's just a good healthy thing to use. So sometimes when I'm sweetening my food, I may not depend entirely on that to sweeten the entire thing, but I'll still throw some of that in there. If it's not a whole lot, if I was sweetening the bowl for myself, I'll probably just use that, you know. But yeah, there's a bit of that. And the cane sugar, which is the thing most people would want to use. It's a quick sweetener. Please don't use white sugar, please. You could. I mean, I'm not saying there's a rule that you should not. I'm just saying I prefer to use brown sugar, and I think you should too. Just saying. So yep, putting some brown sugar. Who is calling me? Okay, hold on a second. This is my producer from Ghana. Interesting. Richard. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, what's up?
Good afternoon, friend.
Yeah, me fro earlier. Me shooting me say. Me shooting me shortly to say. I'm in fro back in about 10 minutes, okay? Alright, cool. Me fro back. So, throw in the sugar, brown sugar. Now, we are going to mix all of that up. Right, let me use this. Let me use something solid. Mix all of that in. Oh, this smells so good. Right? And you remember the point I keep making about the water ratio? The water versus grain ratio? Look at this, it looks almost solid, right? Don't feel no way about it, because this is when you're gonna throw this bad boy in here, because that is gonna break it down and make it a little more liquidy, right? Ready and waiting to go with it. Now look at this. This is what I'm talking about. This is what it's supposed to look like. See? Now it's all creamy and nice and everything. Right? Now it's ready to go inside the bowl. Breakfast is served. You can have that with whatever you want to have it with. Bread, kose, akara, whatever on the side. Oops. I'll see you guys. Bye. I'll see you. Alright? Keep the faith. Keep the faith. I'm off to go eat. On love. Hold on, let me do this. Yo, it's the truth, and it's also very healthy. Wheat is very healthy for you, right? Rather than you see a lot of wheat in my recipes going forward, but it's a good replacement or an addition to rice, white rice, because you don't want to eat all white rice all the time. Obviously, that's something you want to stay away from. But people love white rice, jasmine rice, all of that. I do too. So instead of doing like all plain white rice, I'll add some wheat to it for fiber, texture, and for pure taste. It's delicious. It's great for you. So thank you for tuning in to ITAL MUKASE. Next week, we'll see more recipes from the motherland, which are naturally vegan in ITAL. Before I go, let me say something about ITAL. People have a lot of definitions for ITAL. If you ask 10 different people, they probably give you about 5 different definitions for ITAL. Now, here's my take on ITAL. I'm a Rastaman who lives in New York City. it's a concrete jungle. There are certain things that I just cannot get like fresh off the tree. So my definition of ITAL on this show may not be what someone else may define as ITAL, because ITAL really would be like just going in the backyard and plucking my fresh tomatoes and everything and coming here to cook it down. I don't have that luxury. So as much as possible, we still do ITAL. But I'll tell you one thing, it's definitely vegan. And it's made with a lot of love and good vibes. We'll see you next week on ITAL MUKASE. One love. Keep it. Prosper.